messages. I'm not sure where to start first. Like there were 4 different decks that I pulled the cards from. So let's start in the order of how I did it. This kind of like was the first one. So that kind of like really kind of like came to me like in a rush, like really kind of like I felt really good, both of them. Milky Way, given that we are going through the period of Libra transit. No guys, this is not reading for Libra, this is reading for all signs. We are simply going from the end of September till the end of October through transit of Libra, meaning Libra people have their birthday, I believe, starting 28th to 20th. So Milky Way, as you know, the Earth is part of this kind of like whole sets of galaxies that are kind of like all swirling. And just like when you compare that like with hurricanes and with tornadoes, like kind of like eye of the storm, they are enormous, right? So this one over here that shows a little dot, this is our solar galaxy over here. So you can just imagine how a small dot Earth is, and then how much smaller, non-existent to our eye dot is basically makes us. So I really think this kind of like is telling us to shed our ego, to kind of like understand the process that we are part of one big thing. And especially in the West, we are living with individualism, which I, as an Aquarius, really love. But we are kind of like forgetting that pushing in one way is completely neglecting the other, right? Because look what is happening right after gaining this perspective, after understanding, well, you know what? Even if I hate you, if I harm you, actually I'm harming myself. It's like, you know what they say, you know, you cut your nose to spite your face. I think it might be actually a healing period. Keep in mind that Libra is all about bringing things in balance. It's kind of like really important, the transition we are going through. And then we are getting Waterfall as a follow-up card. Actually 2 of them came out together. And so look at this cascading, beautiful kind of like falls coming out here. And I don't think there is any one of us coming in a sunny day on the edge of this kind of like and saying, oh my gosh, I'm not being taken by this, I'm not feeling really relaxed. But I really feel that these 2 cards combined is basically sending us message that maybe we are coming to the edge of our comfort zone, and we are finding ourselves maybe fighting to resist moving past, you know, that, I don't know, perceived precipice. What is next? Where do I go forward? Maybe kind of like we went on like using our way so far on the ledge, and now we have to figure out who we are, how we can be, what we can become, and what we can do. So I think like coming to the spirit messages, spirit is asking us to step beyond that edge. You know, like that's a Fool card in tarot. The entire tarot is basically based on the Fool as the card. That's the God that is descending, as above so below. And here it's like Regis perspective. If you're struggling, then something is not effortless. So allow yourself to do so with ease rather than struggle, right? So I get it that at times like physical exertion is necessary, but when kind of like we are performing things with fluidity and grace, like even when something seems to be very kind of like daunting, then we actually really find that, you know, the movement is actually making us kind of like move effortlessly. It looks like that we are going to, because Libra is about communication. Don't forget that, yes, they are like lovey-dovey sign, but it is about communication. So in this like very kind of like tribal world that we are currently living in, I feel this is a great news, right? So remember, if from all this entire reading, from all the signs for your sign, you have to remember something. Remember that approach the present situation or relationship with awareness and grace. Don't try to make it effortless, because it's going to just like be more and more kind of like strain in all of that. Allow. So when you're going to conversation with somebody, just allow things to happen. No matter what they say, yeah, if they irritate you, just let this like flow, because guess what happens with the waterfall? It always kind of finds its way to the ocean, right? Nothing is really barrier. It's kind of like if you have something that is an obstacle, You just like flow around that. So you're going to find that ultimately you come to those calm waters. So it's kind of like really interesting because this card is usually kind of like referring to solar plexus and our breath. So solar plexus is in that navel region. It's really talking about our confidence. It is like really talking in boundaries that we set with other people, right? So breathing is also very, very important, given that we have both air and water. And that's kind of like both suggesting to me that kind of like oxygen. We need to kind of like put things in perspective. Maybe like too much oxygen has been taken out of the room. Maybe we have like some situations where we kind of like feel all we are like talked out. And then I saw these two, which kind of like almost like reinforce this, because now we are dealing with heart chakra and with solar plexus chakra, right? Like gossip card is like really talking about kind of like really trying to find, probably like for maybe once, like it's telling me certainly that we have people who are like really not very savory, that kind of like could be in our surroundings, and we kind of like maybe need to kind of like deal with this, like, because there are some people who are definitely all about prejudice and all about misunderstanding, and we have to find what is inside of us that we are resisting. If people who are like this don't make you angry, then you have to ask yourself why. Because anger is an emotion that has been built inside of us for a reason. And in this society, we are being discouraged of being angry because anger can, as we know, lead to really kind of like devastating actions. But anger really kind of like gives you that sort of like pointers. This is kind of like red flag that something is wrong. And this is kind of like, to me, clearly talking about that we have to find what basically we find in the others. Is that bothers us, that they're very unique and they're not like us, or they're doing something that is like so out there that is just like it's not supposed to be tolerated. So maybe it's the other way around, that other people are not supporting your vision, that maybe there is like some kind of like lack of appreciation. So there is like a complete need to kind of like refocus your life, because this card is called Facade. And this is really talking about reclaiming your life, because look at him, he's like walking on the clouds. He is like literally kind of like descending and kind of like understanding, hey, give me a hand, kind of like, let's kind of like do this together. This also kind of like talks to me about childhood pain. And I know we don't kind of like wake up and say, I have to today deal with the childhood pain. Like, this is not how it really works. But more or less the childhood pain kind of like results, kind of like manifests in everyday things, like how we approach relationships, how we deal with relationships, who are people around us, why are those people around us, etc., etc., etc. So sometimes we are making decisions out of that pain that we don't even notice, that basically has been brewing all these years, and we are simply just mirroring it on the person who is like nearby. Right? So that's kind of like an issue, which I think it's going to be, and maybe this is also part that we need to put in perspective, how much of all this thing that is going on in our life is something that we created, right? Like, so take responsibility. I really think it's really important, because it's kind of like interesting that we didn't get Justice card, but we did get Integration for the Libra passage, which, check it out. Like, what is not in balance here? Look at this. A swan and an eagle. Which one is more important bird? One is like a visionary, and one is like so beautiful and graceful, just like going back to that grace. There is like this lotus flower. There is like this Merkaba, right? Little Merkaba, which is kind of like a theory that we are actually, each one of us, in part of inside of one of these, and that's how we receive our healing, through basically our spinal cord, right? And also there is like this yin and yang over here. As you can see, they're like the opposites, but even each of them contains a little bit of the other, right? So this is basically telling me that with everyone we can find something to break the bread with, right? And I think we have to go in that direction, even if it's a minuscule, even if it's like literally simple as just have a meal, let's just not talk, but we enjoy both food, something basic. That's kind of like really about merging the opposites, sun and the moon. This card, Traveling, is the card about basically, you know, path. As you can see, whatever this horseman is, this kind of card is really talking about enjoying the travel, not the destination. It is reversed though, so I'm really telling myself that maybe destination is important. Maybe it is important, like, I mean, who we want to become, in which direction we really want to go. Who do we, like, you know, like if you're making a sculpture, if you're making a sculpture, I cannot talk, then like you're starting with some kind of like major shape, and then you're kind of like putting things out like eyes and nose, let's say if it's the head, right? So you kind of like know what your goal is. So that vision, like, hey, you know what, like maybe I kind of like started with focus too much on the eye, and now this eye is too big, this one is too small. Why not to kind of like try to keep that big perspective and just like keep going with kind of like these instincts. It almost looks like that we are all going to make a conscious choice to be better. And then this card showed up and poised, and this is like, whoa, look at this, so lovely. In fact, in the traditional card rendition of this card integration, it's called Temperance. And it's like talking about this basically merging of the opposites, merging of finding in the middle of patience, right? This kind of like really reminds me also, like kind of like there is this angel, kind of like, which is kind of like look here, mixing a silver and gold, right? I really think this is like talking about being ready and bringing something to light and being at your best and kind of like confidence, and that's happening only when we kind of like shed kind of like things that are not good in us, when we realize, this person is doing this, I don't like this in this person, but do I do this? Oh yeah, I have to kind of like check that in me, sort of a thing. So be ready for anything right now in this period. It's kind of like going to be really interesting because you will be very confident and people will be responding to the confidence. And it's kind of like when you're in the zone, you tend to have less friction, right? So like everything becomes like more kind of allowing and more gracious. And kind of like, let's say rich people can afford to give a better tip. So that kind of like feeling is going to permeate this entire month. So after this general part, let's start with the individual signs. Hi Cancers, and welcome to your monthlies. I know I am this time around a little bit early, so like, I mean, I'm early because I kind of like want to make it very detail oriented, but I'm also asking myself, am I going too much into details? Now it is very interesting what I see. First of all, you have heart-to-heart conversations. Maybe certain things need to be addressed. Those things could be issues with children, or maybe some of you are thinking about move, maybe physical move, maybe you're moving your job. There are like a whole bunch of issues that you're taking in place. It's kind of like interesting. I don't know if some of you are connecting to Libra, or simply it is you that almost like you're trying to get that impartial look at your situation. It is kind of like really talking about listening, observing, and expressing it over here. It's kind of like neutral position. It's allowing things to unfold. It's kind of like situation when you're asking yourself, how would I feel if I were him or her? It's a very kind of like powerful thing to understand, because it talks about fairness and talks about open-mindedness, right, over here. But kind of like what really is interesting, that you have the child and the stork. Both of them can indicate arrival of a child. And it could be that exactly it is what it is, that you're maybe you're like new parent, or simply like, I mean, as my sister-in-law says, sometimes I have to count 1, 2, 3, kind of like sometimes really gets to you, kind of a thing, which is kind of like really, really possible. This also can talk about kind of like upward motion, a kind of like a new direction, right? And the child can talk about something that has been already brewing. So it's not something new that is happening to you. Certain things could have been kind of like handled for a while. Maybe you were just simply meandering. Maybe you wanted something, you didn't want something, right? It's just like me and my tarot cards. I want them, then I don't have the time for kind of like creating them, and then I want them again. It's kind of like one of those things that you kind of like feel connection to, but somehow you couldn't realize them. And it looks like it could be a time now. It's kind of like one of those things, just like children. It's never a good time to have them. It's very expensive. It takes ridiculous amounts of nerves, and it's a very, very long-term commitment kind of a thing, right? So I really think in this particular period, stress might be coming to you, right? This can also indicate some kind of like loss, and or a worry, like something of kind of like that thing. It's something kind of like that is coming, that is disruptive, and it is kind of like unexpected, just like mice, right? They kind of like eat everything ahead of them, and they also poop behind. So like they're kind of like spreading this disruption and destruction all over the place. You might be uneasy in this kind of like time. Kind of like I see lots of little things that are kind of like amounting to maybe a problem, right? It's not like that you can really point finger and you're saying kind of like that's what it is. And then to boot, you have like this karma card. You have Wheel of Fortune, and that's kind of like really interesting. It came reversed. It is still a karma card. It's talking about that there is like some kind of like clearance, and clearance doesn't mean, oh, I just do the right thing, hey, let me pat myself on the shoulder, off I go. No, it's sometimes, and most of the time, it happens that something is happening to us that we kind of like really don't want to happen, and like it is like really asking us to really, really expand. Remember, expand. So staying where you are or contracting is not basically how you resolve your karma, right? So this is really tell us kind of like that we might find changes, you might find changes occurring in one area of your life, and those changes might be affecting the rest. And I kind of like really see your family life. I really see some kind of like change of job, right? It was like something that really kind of like to you up to this point felt, you know, like, I mean, you're a highly intuitive sign, but you couldn't put a finger on it. And the reason why you couldn't is because something or somebody was a moving target, right? Because like this, be careful, can indicate bad luck and misfortune, and simply is really talking about that events are out of your control, right? And things are not going to go according to your plans. So be kind of like be patient and be strong. This card very strongly, and that's why it's a karma card, says do not feel sorry for yourself. You are given an opportunity to change things to your liking. So look for new opportunities. You see, everything kind of like happens for a reason, and kind of like changes to come may be exactly what you need to kickstart like this old path that I see kind of like was something really important. So some kind of like setbacks might definitely kind of like appear along basically October. I would just like say be cautious. Like, you know, when we tarot reader go like just be this, like it doesn't mean like, oh my gosh, you're going to kind of like die or get lost in the forest, or an owl is going to like come and pry your eyes out. No, I just like kind of like it's telling you, it's kind of like better be prepared. So that's maybe why heart-to-heart conversation is showing up here, because this card is like to me telling, hey, you know what, let's kind of like discuss this, because this is not clear to me, and let's see if we are on the same page, right? So maybe you're allowing others to have too much of an influence on your life. So let's kind of like put everything in balance and see where we go. Okay, so let's go in more details. So what we have here, we have Knave of Cups. This is kind of like really kind of like a good card. Maybe somebody is going to approach you. Maybe you're going to have this kind of like lovey-dovey feeling that somebody's going to say, hey, Miss or Mr. Cancer, you know, I have been looking at you for a while, and now it's the time to maybe ask you, would you like to have a coffee with me, or sort of a thing. Then we have Nine of Pentacles reversed. I'm not so sure that you will really kind of like enthusiastically jump at it. Like Nine of Pentacles is really talking about really feeling strong and solid where you are. You know, like it's one of those days when you really want to turn off television, shut the door, and kind of like really enjoy whatever you're enjoying, right? Kind of like, leave me alone, I am so happy by myself. Kind of like you are able to create barriers between you and the problems. But it doesn't have to mean that one thing is excluding the other. Now, this card is really popping up, and it's kind of like half karma card because it's happening in the now. So now we have kind of like, again, you see, this is telling you that karma cycle is at play, but it is again reversed, just like the Wheel of Fortune. We again have these kind of like 4 elements over here. So this is telling me that it is like something from the past. You know, sometimes we keep going, we think, you know, we are resolving the issues, and maybe like we have resolved them. Maybe we thought we resolved them, but maybe we didn't. So I have a feeling that there is going to be something that's going to kind of like really jump up at you. Like they're like really strong indication of something that needs to be fixed. You might be dealing with Aquarius, with Scorpio, with Leo, or with Taurus as well, or with Pisces. There is like also strong indication of that, and also could be a Libra. There are certain things from the past that basically will be resurfacing right now. It could be like the Knight of Wands. Could be that somebody was wooing you in the past but had this kind of like Houdini impact on you. That would be somebody who would just like show up, and it would be somebody who would just like vanish, almost like in and out. So you really were not sure what the heck is going on. Am I moving forward or am I going backwards? So what to do? This Knight of Wands really to me always comes across as a fellow who shows up. Let me show you, I have a new prop for it. Who shows up at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, Cancer, I love you, I love you, look at my this big beautiful Cancer eyes. And then you realize they actually really didn't even mean it properly. That's a Chinese, so of course the teeth are not showing properly. If you had an indication that this person was basically messing up with something that, you know, like sometimes we really want to get along, we really want to give people extra chance, we really want to kind of like see what the heck is going on, but there is like this feeling in the tummy, right, that kind of like tells you, this kind of feels wrong, or that kind of like was hurtful. You know, if you kind of like think back and you have a person who kind of like frequently kind of like evokes that kind of like visceral response, but maybe you don't have anything that you really can say, well, you shouldn't be this way. Maybe even person said to you like, well, I'm just like in and out in your life, I'm not kind of like meaning something like, I mean seriously. Maybe this is like something that suits you, because obviously like some of you are really enjoying being kind of like singletons over here. And then we have the 3 of Cups reversed. Why is 3 of Cups reversed here? Is 3 of Cups upright. It's one of the happiest cards in this entire deck. It really talks about this joy and sharing, and like it's when you really don't have like anything like sort of like that you're holding for yourself. Like it's kind of like the ultimate transparency. So when this card reverses, like it's really telling me that somebody, as I showed you the little kind of like angry unicorn, that somebody might be showing up as a friend, but it really isn't. I'm still not sure if this is the same person over here. Whew, the devil. Are you addicted to this person? Do you really feel that you're like coping at this time in this situation? That you're dealing with this person even though, you see, that's, I kind of like see gaslighting. I see a narcissist over here, but I also see that you you kind of like are condoning that kind of behavior in a sense. Maybe you're saying, oh, this is not wrong, I'm going to catch you, but you know, in relationships we just cannot do that, right? It's something you can, but like you're driving yourself nuts chasing somebody, trying to spy on them, and like literally like, I mean, you go out of yourself. I don't know if you watch Sex and the City. It was this episode, and I don't know what's her name, Samantha was the one who basically had like a million and one affairs, and then finally she fell in love, and all of a sudden she became jealous, and she kind of like had that suspicion that something is going on, but he was like convincing her that it isn't. So she was driving herself nuts, and anyway, long story short, she finally caught him, but that she also realized, oh my god, what the heck am I doing? I'm driving myself crazy, right? That's kind of like that feeling over here that also can tell me that it could be influence of the exes, and that kind of like would make sense over here, that kind of like past is catching up. You might be having issues with child support, that somebody is like really pulling those strings and just like want that, or you want it and you're not getting it, because this impartiality can also talk about some kind of like legal involvement. There's like definitely something that is going to happen that needs to complete this karmic cycle, and you will really feel unhappy. So if you are simply continuously debating with somebody about somebody's honesty or somebody's faithfulness, then you just like have to realize that you're taking something away from you, your own sanity, your own sense of well-being, right? Because people don't have to tell you, you do know that, right? And there are like so many other people who basically will treat you nicer, but this is a part of a pattern. So sometimes we just dump a person, we manage to get that much strength just to meet another person just like that, who is like the same person in a different body. So it is kind of like really needed to remove these chains. You see like this kitty here, she thinks she is like a dog, and this one thinks is a rabbit, and both of them are wrong. So this is really talking about really acting out of who you are. Maybe you're like super kind person, and then you act like fierce and vicious, and then you go like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, I'm not being myself and I don't like me now, kind of a thing. There's a Queen of Swords. You guys are kind of like, you're breaking something up. You're like cleaning the slate. Queen of Swords, when she comes reversed, is like talking about a breakup. It's talking about minimizing, but minimizing in not so many words. It looks like these chains are being cut, and this is it. You're kind of like severing certain situation. So we'll see what this is. And look at this Nine of Swords in the environment. There's going to be lots of things happening your way, because look at here, like all these swords going to our kitty and trying to kind of like wiggle out, and anywhere you go, sword, sword, sword. It's kind of like swords are representing problems and issues, right? And Nine of Swords is kind of like talk about that circular, and look at this, like you have this circular kind of like opinions over here already. So you know, like when you just cannot find a solution, oh, I wish this happens, or I wish he or she changes, or I wish, you know, like, I mean, I get a better job, but literally no exit shows up, no solution shows up, and as a result you just like get more and more anxiety. You know, what's his name, Eckhart Tolle, and I have learned that from him, which kind of like is very valid, that we cannot have anxiety in the present. We can only have it in the past or in the future. So in the past, because we are sad or upset about certain things that happen, so that can be triggering anger. In the future, because we have fear of the future, and oh my gosh, this is not going to happen, I'm not going to be with this person, I'm not going to have enough money, right? And this is where it's happening, where here it doesn't. And that's why the solution is literally just to simply focus from a minute to minute, and then you can stretch them from 5 minutes to 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden this kind of like pressure subsides. And that actually really is very beneficial, because we become like a magnet. One bad thing happens, then all of a sudden you're like just like porcupine, like everything just like sticks on you. And that's kind of like this unfortunate combination over here. And there's like this King of Wands. And it's kind of like really interesting. This could be the same person, and this time actually it could be simple child psychology. You cut somebody off, you just like slam your fist on the table and you say, like, this is too much upsetting, this is upsetting me too much, I cannot handle, you are not my friend, you don't wish me well, you're just upsetting me too much, off you go. And then they show up. I'm going to clarify this because yeah, sometimes people just like really realize, oh my gosh, I really pushed it too much and I didn't even realize I was like a jerk or so and so. But this is like a fun person to be with. Like, I mean, even the Knight of Wands is fun, but Knight of Wands, when he's reversed, he promises lots of things, but he just doesn't do them. This guy actually kind of like is one of those people who is not going to make big grand plans, but he's going to say, phone call, hey, what are you doing? Well, not much, I'm picking you up in half an hour. Kind of like one of those things, like really highly energetic and taking you places, doing different things, and it's like really fun person to date. So this could be like, I mean, continuation of somebody new, right? It's kind of like that fire energy, but this is the king energy. King energy is like that solid, good energy of somebody who actually can provide stability. There I go. Judgment. So this is like your third karma card. This is actually lovely. The Judgment is really talking about past lives. And you also had this hidden underneath this card, the moon reversed, which kind of like is good because it talks about that you will just going through the fog this entire period of time until you kind of like get kind of like clarity. Like right there is like that, not spiral, but circular thinking. So if you cannot reach conclusion when you kind of go in one direction, just like stop. As I said, don't think about future, don't think about the past. But look at this. You have like 19, you have 20, 21. See what I mean? This is the last card of the major arcana. We also have 2 9s. There is like a something that you guys on the brink of pushing in a new direction. The Judgment in particular is a really good card, especially when, well, when it comes upright. When it's reversed, we still need to work on certain things. When it comes upright, it talks about, you see, just like this one has to return, but toward the end of the month, you are making huge headways. In spite of all this kind of like nagging, in spite of the things that kind of like went against the grain and you're swimming up the water, you're kind of like exhausted. But this is kind of like clearing that karma, kind of like, I am kind of like feeling I have actually accomplished something. And this could be at work, this could be emotionally. It's going to be lots of things that will be actually going on simultaneously. So as I said, you might be moving a new job and it's going to be maybe not as great as it seemed, and maybe it's going to be too much of a commute, that sort of things, right? And you also will be just getting to this point and saying, ugh, you know what, I'm just like so fed up with people who are like not reliable in my life, and why don't I just like be there for myself by myself, because my friends are not there for me when I want them, and I simply kind of like really have to trust myself. Moment when you reach this decision, just like the gateway open. It's totally bizarre. So let me just like see the devil. Why Cancer has the devil here? Look at this. You're having frivolity, you're having haughtiness and service. Well, they came all reversed, right? So instead of flying, they're getting grounded, just like the devil. It's kind of like that locked energy. I really feel that's exactly what's going to happen. You will totally know where is like that ceiling that you're feeling, or which door is closed, and like you're so sick and tired of knocking on that door. So simply, I think you're going to swallow your pride or ask for something that you need to, heart-to-heart conversation. And there is like a lots of pride, because like that's what the peacock here shows. you, by doing that, right? And then we have, oh no, that's a falcon over here. We have the butterflies here as well. So this is simply saying that some kind of like heavy attitude will actually be reversed. That whatever is pressing you, you'll feel at one point being fully kind of like pressured or squished or cornered. It's going to be significant kind of like energy that you are really not going to like whatsoever. And it's not anything that you do. I really see your surroundings. So let me check this like 9 of Swords here for you. 9 of Swords. There you go. You have Thief, you have Enemy, and you have Sorrow. Well, dishonesty and like, I mean, you're scratching your head, and this is why this card is telling you. That's why it's Karma card. So this is happening for a reason. Why are you placed in this situation, right? Which book was it that I read, like where you're dealing with a negative situation? Of course, knee-jerk reaction is like to handle it, right? But the book was really suggesting, oh yes, 48 Laws of Power, I think it was. It sounds like really ominous, but it's a really good book, Robert Greene, with E at the end. So he's talking about how the best way to combat people is with humor. That humor is bringing this lightness, which kind of like was this kind of like butterfly approach over here. And that's why I'm mentioning, because Thief and Enemy can talk about exes. You might be kind of like feeling drained by the previous partners or by the other people who are actually backstabbing you, like, I mean, who are kind of like creating things. Or worse yet, you might be facing a situation where you maybe are dealing with people who you really do so much good, and they just like snap at you, and there's like somebody lurking in the shadows. I really strongly feel that some of you are really going to be looking for a new job, and that somebody's undermining your efforts, or there's like somebody who is much stronger, but you're being led to believe that something is happening because you see Sorrow, something is not ending well, something is, right, feeling at odds, because like Sorrow, it's well, obviously not happy card, right? But look at her, she's like not even looking what is ahead of her. So you really need to, and this is kind of like same thing here, being stuck in a head and being stuck emotionally somewhere, and that's because of something that is happening. So that's kind of like, it's lovely seeing that that shift is going to happen big ways. That's why you have this King of Wands. So let's see this person here. What is this King of Wands here? King of Wands for Cancer. House, Misfortune, and Soldier. It could be somebody who is really protecting you. It could be somebody who is actually providing you solutions, and who is going to just become sort of like that shining kind of like light for you. Because look, Misfortune in the house. It could be somebody who is a counselor, right? Somebody who can actually really give you a proper advice, like where you need to guard yourself, what you need to guard yourself to protect basically yourself in here. It's going to be somebody who will actually tell you specifically what to do. Not only, hey, you know, do you also hate this person and so and so. It's kind of going to be somebody who will give you extremely pragmatic thing, but will want you to keep it for yourself. You can trust this person. And let me see the Judgment. No, actual Judgment is clear. You're like resolving something. You're like actually winning. You are turning everything around over here. I want to check this like 3 of Cups. 3 of Cups. Reunion, Scholar, and Cheerfulness. There is somebody who has other partners. There is somebody who Either has another partner, right? You see this reunion, that's what I'm saying. Somebody kind of like looks like here is in and out of your life, and it's really messing your emotions over here. And I really feel that, you know, there is like going to be time and place where you have to decide what you want. Do you really want to continue with somebody who is just like not choosing one, right? You see 2 women, 1 man, or you kind of like really want to go a little bit deeper in the situation. So that's going to be the question of the month. What do I do? So are you going to follow this gut feeling? Because like I think your gut feeling is really confusing you. Your gut feeling is saying, hey, you know, I really kind of like feel for this person, but you also feel, I feel warning. So you need to kind of like figure out which part is stronger. And if the person really wants to have something to do with you, they will actually give you explanation versus just like shoving you aside. So you kind of like have the right to ask questions. So Cancer, I didn't actually pull the card, I forgot before, so let me just grab one for you to seal this reading. And again, this is a general reading, so for this you need to kind of like put more puzzles together, because sometimes like the sun sign resonates, sometimes it doesn't, but that's why you need to check your ascendant and your moon sign the least. But of course, only private reading kind of like gives you your energy. And there is like something that flicked, and it says deep freeze. Deep freeze. Why? This is what it says. Everything has its season. Now it is the time to put activity on hold while you rest. The cold winter beckons you to slow down and put a freeze on things that are not ready to bloom. It is time for regeneration and hibernation. Forego ambitious activity. A pregnant pause allows ideas to gestate, projects to shift and change, and relationships to go through a dreamy state of being, not going anywhere and not needing to. This is also a time to put all your arguments on ice. Nothing beneficial will come from any of them. Self-care is the most important activity now. So reflect, read a good book, as we kind of seen it, or get a massage. Rest and dream. But you guys are going to do more than that. You guys are going to have your hero coming this month. And if you're single, there will be somebody completely new. If you're with somebody, this person can actually really turn around. But I'm still kind of like I would still advise you to be really cautious about this person, because we still have demise and we still have this heart-to-heart conversation. So ask questions, ask for answers, and know that maybe you don't have every single kind of like fact known to you, so kind of like move a little bit slower. Just make sure to get your rest, as it's being said. So thank you, Cancer, for waiting for this, because now you're toward the last group, last bunch. And until the next time, I love you.